Arizona, where she got her PhD in linguistic anthropology in 2009. Since then, she has taught, or I guess overlapping with then as well, she taught at Portland State University, at Brigham Young University, and now at Brown, where she is an ACLS New Faculty Fellow in Anthropology. Her dissertation, which is titled Social Circulation of Media Scripts and Collaborative Meaning Making in Moroccan and Lebanese Family Discourse, was funded by the Fulbright Foundation, the Leonard Brennan Foundation, the Council of American Overseas Research Centers, and the American Institute for North African Studies. She's been working on a number of publications while she has been in her postdoc, several of which are in press. And her talk today is entitled Sunni Vowels and Remote Prayer Beads. Please welcome Becky Schultz.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here today and for the opportunity to share a little bit of my research with you. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of my current book project, which is moving the dissertation into a manuscript, and then I'll work into my specific focus of the talk for today. So my research interests lie between, at that intersection of urban Moroccan and Lebanese media ideologies, which are beliefs that people have about the communicative possibilities of media channels, and language ideologies. Their expectations about how language works, how it should be understood, and how it should be used. As Ilana Gershon has noted in a recent issue of the Journal of Linguistic Anthropology, media ideologies as a concept draws from the generative study of language ideologies to argue that both media and language ideologies are multiple, partial, strategic, and locatable. In other words, we can hold more than one idea about how language should function, and that concept can vary by context, interlocutors, and interactional intentions. The same holds true for our expectations about language use in media contexts. For example, we might give greater credibility to a speaker's message when they use a language style we deem appropriate for televised public speeches. And that may vary from person to person. Some prefer a more informal, everyman kind of style or tone, while others expect a more formal performance. Thus, the power of media messages depends on our media ideologies, which entail to varying degrees expectations of linguistic style appropriation for a given media format and channel. In my particular research, I explore how Moroccan and Lebanese families collaboratively talk about, evaluate, and perform these ideologies while observing television together. My larger project involves interviews with public media producers, but the things I'm going to be focusing on today are the recordings of actual viewing practices in the home. And most of these come from urban Fez, Morocco, which is a fairly large metropolitan area in central Morocco, and Beirut, Lebanon, which is the capital of Lebanon. And these recordings are part of the ethnographic project I've been doing on and off. The main research was between 2003 and 2005, but I've been going back subsequent summers to do follow-up research as well. I do this, looking at these ethnographic field recordings, I do so to understand the in-the-moment interplay between media expectations, collaborative interpretive processes, collectivity constructions, and language ideologies. So it's, again, that interplay between language and media expectations. Key to my overall analysis is the idea that oral epistemologies, or our ways of knowing that are tied to listening and speaking, they're just as important for media reception practices in Moroccan and Lebanese families as knowing how to make sense of visual images that one encounters through television and more recently social media. And some of these visual images or the expectations about how we understand them are being known as visual literacies. Rather than seeing a sensory hierarchy, right, where visual trumps the oral in media interactions, which is a lot of the argument that has gone on in media reception analyses, or in some cases vice versa, I suggest that families use a complex interpretive calculus for multimedia messages, which entails both oral and visual, but also tactile epistemologies, ways of knowing that are tied to their previous experiences, but are also very specific to programming genre. So they might have different expectations about oral epistemologies and visual epistemologies when they're dealing with news media as opposed to when they are dealing with entertainment or religious content. Today I'm going to be talking about one way in which oral sensibilities are developed through family collaborative evaluations of Arab identities performed on television. So I'm looking at pan-Arab programming and how families both in Morocco and in Lebanon, in these urban centers, deal with those things in terms of their ways that are tied to sound. So now I'm getting to the talk intro. Pan-Arabism, as a set of political and cultural projects in the 19th and 20th centuries, entailed the construction of a shared social imaginary, fostered through mass-mediated linguistic practices. The political ideal of a unified Arab state ebbed and flowed under colonial and post-colonial political maneuverings, but the erasure of ethno-linguistic diversity was part of this creation of Arabness that underlied the nation. Despite that, most of the research on Arabic dialects and other regional minority languages continues to contradict the ideology of a pan-Arab standard, or at least a convergence towards that pan-Arab standard, which is known as modern standard Arabic, or even unified national vernacular languages. Instead, the multilingual reality of the majority of native Arabic speakers entails an environment in which numerous varieties of Arabics and also of foreign languages coexist in ways of speaking shift according to the context, participant frameworks, and the desired expressions of identity. I want to examine the ideological process of multilingualism in the mediated language of mass communication in the Arabic-speaking world. There are very diverse semiotic markers for signaling Arabness, including, as I will argue, the ability to use multiple languages strategically, French and English in the cases that I'm looking at, and Arabic language varieties, both the geographic ones that are tied to, so we talk about Tunisian Arabic or Egyptian Arabic, but also street Arabic, right, which is different from educated forms of Arabic. And all of these are key elements of the collaborative talk that I observed that families were using while they were watching television. Using recordings of family television viewing interactions, I analyzed how these families evaluated entertainment programming built on pan-Arab linguistic diversity and reinscribed it through appropriations. In doing so, they engaged an Arab world unified by exposure to language diversity and accommodation practices.